The email arrived at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. Subject line: Wedding update. My hands trembled as I opened it. 23 words that would shatter everything I thought I knew about my relationship with my daughter, Emma. Mom. After much consideration, Jake and I have decided to have a small, intimate ceremony. We won't be needing you there, Emma. I read it 17 times, each time hoping the words would rearrange themselves into something that made sense. Something that didn't feel like a knife twisting in my chest. Won't be needing me there. 27 years of scraped knees I kissed better. 27 years of birthday parties I planned, school plays I attended, dreams I helped nurture. And she won't be needing me there. The house felt different that night. Every creak in the floorboards seemed louder. Every shadow seemed darker. I wandered from room to room like a ghost haunting my own life, clutching my phone, hoping for another message that would explain, that would take it back. None came. Emma had always been headstrong. Even as a child, she'd dig her heels in when she believed something was right. I'd admired that about her, raised her to think for herself, to stand up for what she believed in. I never imagined she'd use those skills to cut me out of the most important day of her life. The backstory played in my head like a movie I couldn't turn off. Jake Morrison, 28 years old, investment banker, drives a BMW that costs more than most people make in 2 years. He'd swept into Emma's life 8 months ago with expensive dinners and weekend trips to wine country. I should have seen it coming. The way he'd look at me during family dinners. Not hostile, exactly. More like I was an inconvenience he was waiting for someone to clear away. The way he'd steer conversations away from Emma's childhood, her college achievements, anything that happened before he existed in her world. Your mother seems very involved in your life, he'd said once, thinking I couldn't hear from the kitchen. Involved. Like loving my daughter was a character flaw. But Emma had seemed happy, radiant even. She'd light up when she talked about him, about their plans, their future. When she announced their engagement 3 months ago, I'd pushed down my reservations and focused on her joy. I'd offer to help with the wedding planning. Traditional mother-daughter bonding, I'd thought. Shopping for dresses, tasting cakes, addressing invitations. Emma had seemed enthusiastic at first. Then the responses started getting shorter. The phone calls less frequent. When I'd ask about details, she'd give vague answers about how Jake was handling most of it. How his family had connections. How they wanted to keep things simple. Simple, right? The next morning, I called her. Straight to voicemail. I called again at lunch. Voicemail. I drove to her apartment that evening. Jake answered the door. His smile was perfectly calibrated, polite but dismissive. She's not available right now, he said, already moving to close the door. This is my daughter we're talking about, I said, my voice sharper than I'd intended. And she's made her decision. I think you should respect that. The door clicked shut with surgical precision. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, staring at their apartment window. A part of me wanted to call and scream until she answered. Another part wanted to drive away and pretend none of this was happening. Instead, I did something I'd never done before. I hired a private investigator. Marcus Chen had been recommended by a friend whose ex-husband had hidden assets during their divorce. Quiet man with tired eyes who worked out of an office that smelled like coffee and cigarettes. I need to understand what's happening with my daughter, I told him. Something's not right. He took notes while I explained the situation. Emma's sudden personality change. Jake's influence. The email that felt like it had been written by a stranger. Sometimes people reveal who they really are when they think they have power, Marcus said. I'll see what I can find. While I waited for his report, I did my own research. Jake Morrison, investment banker. Clean credit, no criminal history, but something felt off about his social media presence. Too curated. Too perfect. Like someone had scrubbed away anything that might be problematic. Then Marcus called with information that made my stomach drop. Your future son-in-law has been planning this for months, he said. I found email exchanges between him and his mother. They've been working to isolate Emma from her family. Classic manipulation tactics. He's convinced her that you're too overbearing, too controlling, that starting their marriage without family drama would be healthier. He paused. I could hear papers rustling in the background. There's more. The wedding venue? Rosewood Gardens? Jake's family has connections there. His uncle sits on the board. They've booked it for October 14th. 150 guests. Full reception. This isn't the small, intimate ceremony Emma described. My heart pounded against my ribs. She lied to me. She probably believes it herself at this point. Manipulation like this, it changes how people see reality. Jake's been feeding her a different version of events for months. In his version, you're the problem that needs to be solved. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Emma as a little girl. How she'd run to me when she was scared. How she'd crawl into my bed during thunderstorms and ask me to tell her stories until the fear went away. Now I was the thing she was afraid of. By morning, I'd made a decision that would change everything. I called Rosewood Gardens. I'd like to inquire about hosting an event on October 14th, I said. I'm sorry, but that date is already booked, the receptionist replied. What if I wanted to buy the venue outright? Silence on the other end of the line. Ma'am, I'm not sure I understand. I want to purchase Rosewood Gardens. How much would that cost? Rosewood Gardens had been struggling financially for 3 years. The pandemic had destroyed their event business. Corporate buyouts had eliminated most of their regular bookings. When I walked into their offices the next day with a cashier's check for $2.7 million, the owners couldn't sign the papers fast enough. I'd liquidated my retirement accounts, sold the rental properties my ex-husband and I had bought during better times, cashed in bonds I'd been saving for Emma's future children's college funds. Every penny I had gone. But for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. The plan crystallized over the next few days. If Emma wanted to cut me out of her wedding, fine. But she'd chosen the wrong venue to do it at. October 14th would still be special. Just not the way she expected. I spent the next month transforming Rosewood Gardens. Not into a wedding venue, but into something else entirely. Something that would tell the story Emma had been convinced to forget. Professional photographers enlarged and mounted pictures from Emma's childhood. Her first steps. First day of school. High school graduation. College acceptance letter. Every milestone Jake had worked so hard to minimize. I hired the same caterers Jake had booked. The same florist. The same band. Every vendor received the same instructions. Show up as planned, but serve my event instead. The local news station was intrigued when I pitched them the story. A mother's last stand against family manipulation. They agreed to live stream the entire event. 3 days before Emma's wedding, Jake called me. What the hell do you think you're doing? His voice shook with barely controlled rage. Hosting a party, I said calmly. You can't just buy a wedding venue out from under someone. This is insane. Actually, I can. And I did. You should probably find Emma a new location for her small, intimate ceremony. You're destroying your relationship with your daughter over this. You already did that for me. I hung up. Emma called an hour later. The pain in her voice almost broke my resolve. Mom, please. You can't do this. This was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. And you decided I couldn't be part of it. Jake thinks it's better this way. Cleaner. Less complicated. Emma, do you hear yourself? You're letting another person make decisions about your relationship with your mother. Silence stretched between us like a chasm. I have to go, she whispered. The line went dead. October 14th arrived with perfect autumn weather. Golden sunlight filtered through the trees at Rosewood Gardens. The kind of day Emma had always dreamed about for her wedding. By 10 a.m., the local news truck had arrived. By noon, the story had gone viral. Hashtag mother versus daughter trending on social media. Opinion pieces being written in real time about family boundaries and parental overreach. I didn't care about any of that. I cared about one thing. Telling Emma's story the way it deserved to be told. The vendors arrived as scheduled. The caterers who thought they'd be serving Jake's family served mine instead. Friends who'd known Emma since childhood. Teachers who'd watched her grow up. Neighbors who'd been there for every scraped knee and broken heart. The band played songs from Emma's childhood. The photographer captured moments that celebrated a life Jake wanted everyone to forget. The flowers spelled out messages about unconditional love and family bonds that can't be severed by manipulation. At 2 p.m., cars started arriving at the main entrance. Jake's family, I assumed. Wedding guests who'd received no notification about the venue change. I watched through the window as confusion spread through the parking lot like wildfire. Then I saw her. Emma stood beside Jake's BMW, still in her regular clothes, staring at the gardens she'd planned to be married in. Even from a distance, I could see the devastation on her face. Jake was on his phone, pacing in angry circles, making calls, probably trying to find another venue that could accommodate 150 people with no notice. Emma just stood there, not moving, not speaking, staring at the life-sized photographs of herself that decorated the venue entrance. The live stream had attracted thousands of viewers. Comments poured in faster than anyone could read them. Some calling me a psycho, others applauding my stand against family manipulation. Most just invested in the drama unfolding in real time. At 3:30, Emma walked up to the main entrance. I met her at the door. We stood there for a long moment, mother and daughter, separated by months of lies and manipulation, but still connected by 27 years of love. You look beautiful, I said. Because she did, even in jeans and a sweater, even with tears streaming down her face. You destroyed my wedding. Jake destroyed our relationship. I just provided a different venue for the conversation. He loves me. I'm sure he does. But he does respect the person you were before you met him. And, Emma, that person was pretty amazing. She looked around at the photographs. Her whole life displayed like a museum exhibit. Childhood birthday parties. School achievements. Moments of joy and growth and becoming. I forgot, she whispered. Jake wanted you to forget. He said you were trying to control me. I was trying to love you. There's a difference. Jake appeared beside her, face flushed with anger and embarrassment. Behind him, wedding guests clustered around the entrance, phones out, recording everything. This is harassment, he said. I'm calling the police. Go ahead, I replied. But I own this property now. I'm hosting a private event on my own land. Perfectly legal. You're insane. I'm a mother who refused to disappear quietly. Emma looked back and forth between us. I could see the war playing out behind her eyes. Months of manipulation battling against 27 years of love. Jake, she said finally, can you give us a minute? Emma, don't let her manipulate you. This is exactly what we talked about. Please. He stared at her for a long moment, then stalked back toward the parking lot. Wedding guests followed like confused sheep, probably heading to social media to document the most dramatic wedding disaster in recent memory. Emma and I stood alone at the entrance to the venue that had become a battleground. Tell me about the emails, I said. She flinched. What emails? The ones between Jake and his mother. About isolating you from family drama. About making your wedding cleaner by cutting out the problem people. Her face went white. How do you know about those? Because unlike Jake, I don't believe in keeping secrets from the people I love. The silence stretched between us. In the background, I could hear Jake's voice rising as he argued with someone on the phone. Probably another venue, trying to salvage his perfect day. He showed me emails, Emma said finally, from you, saying terrible things about him, about how he wasn't good enough for me. My heart stopped. I never sent emails like that. They had your email address, your writing style. Emma, I've been worried about Jake's influence, but I've never sent you anything negative about him. Show me these emails. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands, scrolled through her messages, opened a thread that made my stomach drop. The emails were sophisticated. They did sound like me. They referenced conversations Emma and I had actually had, twisted them into something poisonous and controlling. Comments about Jake that I'd thought but never said, somehow appearing in writing as if I'd sent them. Jake showed these to you. She nodded. Emma, I didn't write these. Someone created fake emails to make you think I was trying to sabotage your relationship. That's impossible. Is it? Jake works in finance. He has resources, technical skills, and according to the real emails I found, he's been planning to separate you from your family for months. She stared at the phone screen. I watched as the pieces started falling into place behind her eyes. He said you were getting desperate, that you'd probably try something like this to break us up. What kind of mother do you think I am? The question hung in the air between us. 27 years of evidence versus 8 months of manipulation. Emma started crying. Not the delicate tears of a bride having a moment, but deep, body-shaking sobs of someone realizing they'd been living in a carefully constructed lie. I'm so sorry, she whispered. You don't have anything to apologize for. You were targeted by someone who knew exactly how to exploit your trust. But I believed him. I chose him over you. You chose what you thought was love. That's not a crime, Emma. That's being human. Jake appeared again, this time with wedding guests in tow. His mother, a sharp-faced woman in an expensive suit, led the group like a general rallying troops. Emma, we found another venue, Jake announced. We can still salvage this, but we need to leave now. Emma looked at him with new eyes. Did you fake emails from my mother?
What?
Emma, she's clearly gotten to you. This is exactly what we talked about. She's manipulating you right now. Answer the question. Did you fake emails to make me think my mother was trying to sabotage our relationship? Jake's face went through several expressions before settling on righteous indignation. Your mother has been undermining us from day one. If I helped you see that more clearly, it was for your own good. The admission hung in the air like smoke. Emma stepped back from him. You helped me see it more clearly by lying to me. I protected you. You manipulated me. Jake's mother stepped forward. Emma, dear, you're being emotional. Wedding stress affects everyone differently. Why don't we go somewhere quiet and talk about this reasonably? I watched Emma's face harden, the daughter I'd raised, finally breaking through months of careful conditioning. No, Emma said. I think I've heard enough. She pulled the engagement ring off her finger and handed it to Jake. His face went through shock, anger, and finally something that looked like panic. Emma, you're making a mistake. Your mother planned this whole thing to break us up. Can't you see that? I see that my mother spent her life savings to throw a party celebrating my existence because I tried to erase her from the most important day of my life. I see that you've been lying to me for months. And I see that I almost married someone who thinks loving me means isolating me from everyone who loved me first. The wedding guests had formed a semicircle around us, phones recording every word, the live stream comment section probably exploding with reactions. Jake stared at the ring in his palm like it was evidence of a crime he couldn't understand. This is all your fault, he said, finally turning his attention to me. You couldn't just let us be happy. Happiness built on lies isn't happiness, I replied. It's just delayed devastation. You destroyed everything. I revealed what was already broken. Jake and his family left without another word. Wedding guests scattered like birds after a gunshot. Some looked confused, others relieved. A few approached Emma with hugs and whispered words of support. Emma and I stood alone again in front of the venue that had become the site of her wedding's destruction and our relationship's resurrection. What happens now? She asked. Now we go inside and enjoy the party I threw to celebrate my daughter. The woman you've always been, even when someone was trying to convince you to be someone else. I feel like I've been sleepwalking for months. Manipulation is designed to feel normal. That's what makes it so dangerous. We walked into Rosewood Gardens together. The celebration was still in full swing. Friends and family who'd watched Emma grow up, all gathered to remind her that she'd been loved long before Jake Morrison existed and would continue to be loved long after he became a cautionary tale. The band was playing music from Emma's high school dances. The photographer was capturing candid moments of joy and relief. The caterer served foods from Emma's childhood birthday parties. Everything Jake had tried to erase, celebrated, and preserved. Emma spent the afternoon rediscovering herself through other people's memories. Teachers told stories about her academic achievements. Friends reminisced about adventures Jake had convinced her were embarrassing. Family members shared moments of pride and love that had somehow gotten lost in the manipulation. By evening, Emma was laughing again. Really laughing, not the careful, controlled responses she developed over the past 8 months. The sound made my heart ache with how much I'd missed it. The live stream had attracted over 50,000 viewers. Comments ranged from criticism about my dramatic approach to praise for exposing manipulation tactics. Several domestic violence organizations had shared the stream, using it as an example of how isolation works in controlling relationships. A reporter from the local news station interviewed Emma and me as the sun set over Rosewood Gardens. "Do you regret how this played out?" the reporter asked. Emma considered the question carefully. "I regret that it was necessary. I regret that I didn't recognize what was happening sooner. But I don't regret that it happened. My mother saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life." "And you, Mrs. Davidson? Any regrets about the dramatic approach?" I looked around at the celebration. Friends and family who'd feared they'd lost Emma forever, now laughing with her as if no time had passed. My daughter, free from months of careful conditioning, finally able to remember who she was before someone told her who she should be. "I regret that I had to spend my retirement savings," I said. "But I don't regret spending them. Some things are worth any price." The news story aired that night. By morning, it had been picked up by national outlets. Social media exploded with debates about family boundaries, wedding etiquette, and manipulation tactics. Some called me a hero. Others called me a villain. Most just called it the most dramatic wedding story they'd ever heard. I didn't care about any of that. I cared that Emma was sleeping in her childhood bedroom for the first time in months, free from the influence of someone who'd convinced her that loving her meant controlling her. 3 days later, Jake called. "You won," he said. "Are you happy now?" There was never a contest, Jake. There was just a daughter who needed to remember who she was. She'll never find anyone else. You've turned her against relationships. I've turned her against relationships built on lies and manipulation. If that eliminates you as an option, I think we can all live with that. He hung up without another word. Emma started therapy the following week. Processing months of manipulation takes time, we learned. The fake emails were just the beginning. Jake had isolated her from friends, convinced her that her interests were childish, gradually reshaped her self-image until she barely recognized herself. "He never hit me," she told her therapist during a session I attended. "He never even raised his voice. But he took away pieces of me so gradually that I didn't notice until they were gone." The therapist nodded. Emotional manipulation can be more damaging than physical abuse because the victim can't see the injuries. You start to question your own reality. Recovery wasn't immediate. Emma had moments of doubt, wondering if she'd made the right choice. Jake had been charming when he wasn't being controlling. He'd made her feel special, chosen, elevated above the mundane concerns of family and old friends. "Sometimes I miss him," she admitted one evening as we went through photo albums together. "You miss the version of him that he showed you," I replied. "The man who faked emails from your mother to isolate you from your family? That was always who he was. He just waited until he thought he had enough control to let you see it." "How did you know?" "Because I've been your mother for 27 years. I know what your happy looks like, and what you were showing me wasn't it." Rosewood Gardens became a symbol. Other families reached out, sharing their own stories of manipulation and isolation. Wedding planners began training staff to recognize signs of controlling behavior. Domestic violence organizations referenced our story in educational materials. I hadn't planned to become an advocate. I'd just been a mother who refused to disappear quietly when someone tried to erase her from her daughter's life. 6 months later, Emma was thriving. She'd reconnected with old friends Jake had gradually pushed away. Rediscovered interests he'd convinced her were beneath his standards. Started dating someone who loved her family stories instead of trying to erase them. Thank you, she said one evening as we planned her 28th birthday party. For what? For refusing to let me disappear into someone else's idea of who I should be. That's what mothers do, Emma. We hold space for who you really are, even when you forget. The total cost of saving my daughter's life was $2.7 million. My retirement fund, gone. My security, eliminated. My future, uncertain. The value of Emma's freedom was incalculable. Her laughter, returned. Her spirit, unbroken. Her future, her own again. Some prices are worth paying, no matter what they cost. The wedding that never happened became the party that changed everything. Not just for Emma and me, but for everyone who witnessed a mother's refusal to let manipulation win. Emma never did have a wedding at Rosewood Gardens. But she had something better. She had herself back, and the knowledge that someone loved her enough to spend everything to make sure she remembered who she was. That was worth more than any wedding could ever be.